The Astra crown was a monument to hubris, polished to a mirror sheen. It hung in the black, a halo of imperial gold and defiant light, dwarfing the very planet it orbited. Below it slept Elysian, a world of silent tombs and dust-filled cities. Elysian was a graveyard, the final resting place of a civilization so advanced they had been known only as the architects. The Helian Empire, in its infinite ambition, had built its grandest station here, hosting the Galactic Conference as a declaration, "We are the masters now," from the high dais of the Grand Convocation Hall. Empress Solara Helion observed the proceedings with an elegant, practiced coldness. She was the absolute ruler of 1,000 worlds, the epicenter of the Helian Star Empire, and she was suffocating. To the delegates, she was a goddess in white and gold, her features serene and perfect, her posture radiating an authority centuries in the making. Inside, Solara was a prisoner, a political puppet crafted by her High Regent, Kalar. Her days were a crushing litany of ceremonies, smiles, and hollow pronouncements. She was 23 cycles old and had not made a meaningful choice in her life. Worse, she had a secret, a flaw, a madness she had hidden since childhood. She heard whispers. The whispers were faint in the capital, a mere background static. But here, above Elysian, they were a constant, aching pressure against her mind. They emanated from the dead planet below, a mournful, complex song of machinery and memory that no one else seemed to perceive. She hid the migraines, masked the distraction, and pretended the silence of the tomb world was absolute. Tonight was the grand banquet. Another 3 hours of forced pleasantry. The hall was filled with the glittering, chitinous, and gaseous elites of the known galaxy. And, for the first time, a species that fit none of those categories. They were the buzz of the conference, the whispered scandal, the social experiment everyone was watching. Humans. They were the new variable. Hailing from a planet so comically violent, it was classified as a death world, a place of tectonic instability, extreme weather, high gravity, and a biosphere that actively tried to murder its inhabitants. The galaxy had watched, horrified, as humanity clawed its way off Earth, fueled by caffeine, desperation, and an irrational refusal to accept the impossible. They were resilient, they were reckless, and they were infuriatingly unpredictable. The Helian elite regarded them with a mixture of fear and, more offensively, morbid curiosity. The human delegation, all 12 of them, were seated near the tertiary buffets. A clear political slight. Solara had no power to correct. Among them, one man seemed utterly unfazed. He was not the ambassador, who was currently sweating under the polite scrutiny of a 7-foot insectoid. This man was listed as Adrian Cole, a xenotech specialist, a technical advisor, a scientist. He looked painfully ordinary. His suit was a functional, unadorned black, stark against the shimmering robes and carapaces around him. He had brown hair, a face that was neither handsome nor ugly, and a posture that suggested he was more comfortable in a lab coat than a dress uniform. But his eyes were not ordinary. They were sharp, constantly moving, and analytical. They watched the flow of power in the room, the exchanges, the feigned smiles. And when they briefly scanned the high dais, they held no awe, only observation. A small, deeply ironic smile played at the corners of his mouth, as if he were cataloging the sheer absurdity of it all. Solara was not the only one to notice. At her own table, a glittering collection of minor nobles and distant relatives. The mood was one of shallow boredom. They were technically her entourage, but they were Kalar's eyes. Tonight, however, they were focused on their own amusement. Solara herself was in disguise, not a physical one, but an illusion of status. A simple glamour field, provided by her personal guard. projected the image of a minor noblewoman, Princess Kalia of the Outer Rim. It was a small rebellion she was allowed, a way to move through crowds without the crushing weight of the imperial crown. Her entourage knew who she was, which made their next move all the more insulting. Her cousin, Lord Valerius, a man whose chin was as weak as his political opinions, leaned in. "Look at them, Highness," he whispered, gesturing discreetly with his wine flute toward the human table. "The Deathworlders. They eat like they expect the food to fight back." A ripple of cruel laughter. "That one, another noblewoman," Lyra chimed in, pointing at Adrian. "He looks so soft." "Not at all what the report said. I heard they could regenerate limbs." "That is the Xylopian. Lyra, not the human," Valerius corrected, puffing out his chest. "The human is the one who keeps looking at the structural integrity of the ceiling supports." Valerius turned back to Solara, his eyes gleaming with a petty challenge. "They say the Deathworlders are immune to Helian charm. They say they cannot be intimidated. I wager 10,000 credits you cannot hold that one's attention for 5 minutes. Princess Kalia. This was their game. A prank. A dare. To send a high-ranking though disguised noble to sit with the Galactic Zoo's newest exhibit. To watch the human squirm. Or fawn. Or, most hopefully, commit a disastrous breach of protocol." Solara looked at Valerius. She looked at his smug, pampered face. She looked at the circle of expectant nobles, all waiting for her to play her part as the polite, distant princess. The whispers from Elysian pulsed in her temples. The boredom was a physical weight. And at that moment, the prank ceased to be his idea. It became hers. It was stupid. It was reckless. It was beneath her station. It was perfect. 10,000, Solara replied, her voice a cool, smooth contralto. "You undervalue me, cousin. Make it 20. Valerius blanched, but the dare had been publicly made. He nodded stiffly. Solara stood. The grace of her movement drew no attention in the crowded hall. She adjusted the illusion, letting it settle. Princess Kalia was shy, observant, and harmless. The Empress remained seated on the dais, a perfect, lifeless decoy projected by her throne's own field. She glided between tables, a phantom in silk. Her entourage watched, stifling their laughter. She reached the human delegation's table. The ambassador was gone, likely trapped in a conversation about tariffs. Adrian Cole sat alone, swirling a dark beverage in his glass, looking profoundly unimpressed with the universe. The seat next to him was empty. Solara stopped, affecting a perfect mask of polite inquiry. Adrian looked up. His eyes widened slightly, not in awe of her beauty, but in surprise that anyone was addressing him directly. "Pardon me," Solara said, her voice soft, projecting the persona of Princess Kalia. "Is this seat occupied by anything other than galactic potential?" Adrian blinked. The ironic smile returned, this time directed at her. "Only by my profound disappointment in the local catering, madam. But please, add some potential. I could use the company." She sat, a delicate, precise movement. Her entourage, watching from afar, was already giddy. "You are the human delegation," she stated, as if just noticing. "We are," he said, taking a sip of his drink. "And you are Helian nobility. My apologies. The uniforms here are very elaborate. It is hard to tell the staff from the guests." Solara's mask nearly slipped. He was not groveling. He was not intimidated. He was insulting her, politely, to her face. She found herself suppressing a genuine smile. "We are told," Solara pressed on, playing the game, "that your world is challenging." "Challenging is a polite word for it," Adrian replied, turning to look at her fully. His eyes were a startling, clear gray. "We call it Earth. Our planet tries to kill us 6 days a week. On the 7th, The paperwork is dreadful. A death world. So the galaxy calls it. We just call it home. It keeps us on our toes. Unlike these garden worlds most of you seem to have sprung from. Too much stability makes you soft. He gestured with his glass. Case in point, this party. You all look terrified that someone might spill a drink. And you are not. I am terrified the ceiling might collapse. Your station's design relies on some very optimistic assumptions about harmonics, especially orbiting a relic planet with an unknown gravimetric signature. This was not the conversation she had expected. He was not a brute. He was a scientist. A sarcastic, observant scientist. You are a specialist in xenotech, she said, recalling the briefing. You study the architects. I try, Adrian said, his tone shifting. The humor faded, replaced by a focused intensity. Most of you, he gestured to the hall, treat the architects like gods, and their relics like holy sites. You are afraid to touch, afraid to ask the wrong questions. And you are not. We are children playing with ancient cannons, but at least we are trying to read the manuals. The complete lack of illustrations is a serious problem, but we are making progress. Solara felt a strange vibration, a hum that seemed to come from the table itself. You seek to weaponize their technology. We seek to understand it. That is what science is. Understanding. The Helian Empire, on the other hand. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping. Seems to think understanding is secondary to control. The tension was no longer humorous. It was sharp. He was dangerous. Not physically, but intellectually. He saw the Empire for what it was. You are very bold, human, to say such things on a Helian station. I am a technical advisor. I advise. Technically. Adrian smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Besides, you are just a minor princess. Right. What harm could a little honesty do? Solara was about to reply. To deliver a scathing, witty retort that would put him back in his place. When the hum beneath her hand intensified. She looked down. Her hand was resting on the tabletop. It was not mere smart glass. Inlaid in the surface was a complex ring of metallic tracery. It was a ritual connection ring, a dormant interface point for the Astra Crown's ancient, non-Helian core systems. As Adrian spoke, he had mirrored her, resting his own hand on the table to emphasize a point. His fingers brushed the same metallic ring, just inches from hers. Skin on the ring. Her hand. His hand. The whispers in Solara's mind, the constant, aching pressure from illusion, did not just get louder. They focused. The static collapsed into a single, piercing, harmonic note. The note resonated with her, passed through her, and found a target. Him. For Adrian, the sensation was not sound. It was data. He inhaled sharply, his eyes flying wide. It was not a jolt of electricity. It was a deluge, a waterfall of information, cold and fast, pouring into his mind. He felt blueprints, star charts, lines of code that were not code, and a suffocating sense of age. He felt a lock, a complex, multi-dimensional security mechanism, click open in his very genetics. For Solara, the harmonic note became a voice. Not a voice of words, but of pure meaning. The whispers she had heard all her life, the lonely call had just been answered. The connection was made. The reaction was instantaneous and catastrophic. A gentle shudder, impossibly deep, ran through the entire superstructure of the Astra Crown. Wine glasses trembled. The great chandeliers swayed. In the hall, the conversations died. Then, the walls lit up. The decorative patterns, the ones everyone ignored. The ones salvaged from illusion and dismissed as art, flared with a brilliant, golden light. They were not art. They were circuits. A localized field of energy erupted at their table. It was not Helian technology, not human, not anything known. It was a torrent of light, ancient and alive. It flared up around Solara and Adrian, enveloping them in a column of swirling, geometric light for 1.5 seconds. It traced glowing, filigree patterns across Solara's exposed arms. It seared through the sleeve of Adrian's suit, marking his skin. The light designated them, marked them, and bound them. Bonded catalysts. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the light vanished. The shutter stopped. The glowing circuits on the walls faded back to inert metal. The hall was utterly silent. Everyone had felt the tremor. Everyone had seen the lights flicker. The security forces at the door were already moving, their armor clattering. Solara was breathless. Her heart was pounding. The whispers were gone. In their place, a single, clear, terrifyingly vast consciousness was now aware of her. It was in her head. Adrian was pale, gripping the edge of the table. He was fighting the urge to vomit. His brain ached, burned, with the imprint of that data wave. He felt rebooted. He turned to her. The Princess Kalia illusion flickered, her disguise momentarily dissolving, revealing the stunned, terrified, and powerful face of Empress Solara Helion. He saw her. She saw him. The hall erupted in panicked questions. Imperial guards were shouting. Her entourage was frozen in horror, the prank forgotten. Adrian Cole, the Death Worlder, summoned every ounce of resilience his chaotic planet had ever beaten into him. He looked away from the Empress, gave a weak cough, and forced a shaky smile to a nearby, terrified Xylopian ambassador. "My apologies," Adrian rasped, his voice hoarse. "Must be the alien seafood." Solara quickly restored her illusion, but it was too late. They had been marked. The ancient heart of Elysian, the legacy of the architects, had been silent for 10,000 years. And a bored Empress and a sarcastic human had just, by accident, provided the key. The chaos in the Grand Convocation Hall was a discordant symphony of 100 different species expressing panic, shrill cries, low-frequency rumbles of distress, and the sharp, metallic commands of the Imperial Guard echoed off the vaulted ceilings. In the center of it, Solara and Adrian were two islands of forced calm. The guards had formed a perimeter around their table. Adrian's glib comment about the seafood had bought them perhaps 2 seconds of confusion before the Empress's personal guard, materializing from shadows in the walls, had surrounded Solara, their energized pikes forming a cage of deadly light. "Your Highness, are you harmed?" the captain of her guard hissed, his eyes scanning the crowd for assassins, not ancient phenomena. Solara, whose illusion had vanished completely, regained her composure with a speed that was truly imperial. She stood, smoothing the front of her gown. "I am fine, Captain." It was a power surge. That was not a power surge. "Your Highness." A new voice cut in, smooth as chilled oil. High Regent Kalar emerged from the throng, flanked by his own contingent of black-armored inquisitors. He was a tall man, impeccably severe, his handsome Helian features marred only by the complete absence of warmth in his eyes. He was the man who had raised her, the man who had neutered her power, the man who ran the empire in her name. He was the true master of the state. He bowed to her, a movement that was technically respectful, but felt like an act of possession. Empress. A technical failure of this magnitude on the Astra Crown, during the Galactic Conference, is unfortunate. His gaze slid past her, landing on Adrian Cole, who was now standing. His hands slowly raised in a universal gesture of, "I am unarmed and deeply regretting my life choices." Kalar's eyes narrowed, just for a fraction of a second, and with a guest. "How curious." "Secure the human," Kalar ordered, not to her guards, but to his own. And the rest of his delegation, Confine them to quarters until we understand what just happened. Hold, Solara said, her voice sharp, surprising even herself. The thing in her head, the vast, silent awareness, did not like this man. It did not like Kalar. He is a delegate under diplomatic protection. Regent. Kalar turned his smile on her. It was a dreadful, paternalistic thing. Of course, Your Highness. A protective quarantine, for his own safety, and to ensure the stability of the station, which he may have inadvertently compromised. Adrian Cole looked at Solara, then at Kalar. The ironic smile was gone, replaced by a calculating, cold neutrality. I would be happy to cooperate, he said. I would hate for my choice of appetizer to be the cause of an intergalactic incident. The Inquisitors did not find it amusing. They flanked him, their weapons leveled. Adrian shrugged and allowed himself to be led away. But not before his eyes met Solara's one last time. It was not a look of appeal. It was a look of shared experience. You felt that too. Within 3 hours, the Astra Crown was on high alert. The banquet was over. The delegates were confined to their suites. The station's internal diagnostics were running at 100% capacity. In his private command center, a dark, circular room deep in the station's military-grade core, Kalar reviewed the first of the reports. The readouts flickered on a wall-sized display. It was not a cascade failure. The chief engineer, a tense Helian woman, reported via comms. All primary and secondary systems are green. The power surge was localized, but the reverberation was station-wide. Reverberation, Kalar repeated, his fingers steepled. He was alone, save for the blue light projections of his technicians. Yes, High Regent. The energy signature is anomalous. It did not originate from our power core. It did not originate from the human delegation's technology. The logs show it came from the station itself, specifically from the dormant systems. The architect systems, Kalar murmured. Sir, yes. A dormant ancient directive was activated. It's not just a power surge. It's a change of status. The core is waking up. The source of the activation traces precisely to grid location 447 Alpha, the Grand Convocation Hall, Table 28. Kalar silenced the comm and magnified the image of the hall. Table 28. He watched the security footage, his eyes tracking the disguised Empress and the human scientist. He watched their hands rest on the ceremonial ring. He watched the impossible column of light. He cross-referenced the energy signature with his private database, one he had spent decades compiling in secret. The data he had stolen from forbidden tombs on Elysian. The texts he had spent half a lifetime deciphering. There it was, a match. The dual lock model, he whispered to the empty room. A feeling of triumph, so profound it was almost painful, washed over him. He had theorized, but now he knew. For years, Kalar had pursued the ultimate power of the architects. He did not seek their weapons, or their star drives. He sought their greatest, most terrible creation, the lattice, an invisible network that bound star systems together, a network he believed was not for travel, but for thought. A projecting tool will cross the gap, the ultimate instrument of control. His research had pointed to a fatal flaw in his plan. He could study the lattice, but he could not touch it. The ancient texts spoke of a bonded catalyst, a dual key, a lock that required two specific, living components. One of the Helian lines, he said, looking at Solara's frozen image, the imperial bloodline, which he had long dismissed as a useful bit of political theater, was actually a literal key. And one outside, a compatible outsider, a genetic wildcard so rare he had assumed it was a metaphor. Until now. He had dreamed of this day. He would finally bring order to a chaotic galaxy. No more wars, no more dissent, no more messy, unpredictable free will. Just a single, unified, peaceful galaxy, all singing in harmony, all guided by his benevolent, unseen hand. The human, Adrian Cole, and his own Empress, Solara, were not people. They were the keys to his utopia. Solara was not taken to her imperial suite. She was invited to a secure conference room in the political wing. The Imperial Council was already assembled, a collection of grim-faced, high-ranking nobles and military leaders, all of whom answered to Kalar. And Kalar himself sat at the head of the table. "Your Highness," he began, his voice dripping with false concern, "we are relieved you are unharmed, but we must have a full accounting. Your prank, as Lord Valerius has tearfully confessed, has put this entire conference, and perhaps the station, at risk." Solara sat, her spine rigid. She projected the perfect image of a chastened, repentant ruler. It was an error in judgment. High Regent. A moment of levity. Levity, Kalar repeated, savoring the word. The station's core, which has been silent for millennia, has been activated. We are detecting energy signals from a lesion we have never seen before. This is not a matter of levity. Empress. "What did you feel?" asked General Vorlag, a blunt, scared man whose loyalty was to Kalar alone. Solara kept her expression smooth, a mask of aristocratic confusion, a shock, a vibration. "I saw the light, as you all did. He must have done something." She could feel it, even now. The presence. It was no longer a collection of whispers. It was a conscious, quiet, and impossibly large thing now cohabiting her mind. It was not speaking. Not yet. It was just awareness. And it was listening. The human did nothing. "Your Highness," Kalar said, his eyes boring into hers. "He was a catalyst. As were you." Solara feigned a gasp. "Regent, surely you do not imply I am to blame for a technical failure." "I imply nothing," Kalar said, the smile not touching his eyes. "I am merely stating the facts. The energy flowed between you. Our sensors are very clear. Did you experience anything unusual?" A sound. A voice. He was fishing. He knew, or he suspected. Solara felt a cold dread, but also a new, burning anger. This thing in her head was hers. It was the first thing in her life that truly was. The whispers had been her secret, her madness, and now this vast, silent voice was her new, terrifying companion. She would not give it to him. A voice regent. "You are starting to sound like the mystics on Xylos." It was a loud noise, a bright light, and a shock. Nothing more. "Now, if you are done interrogating your Empress, I suggest you focus on the human. Clearly, his unstable death-world physiology is incompatible with architect technology." She stood, a clear dismissal. The council members looked at Kalar. He held her gaze for a long moment, a silent battle of wills. He smiled. "Of course, Your Highness. My apologies. You must be weary." He let her go. As she walked out of the room, her back straight, she felt his calculating gaze on her. She had passed the test, for now, but she had also confirmed his suspicions. She was hiding something. Adrian Cole sat in a sterile, white interrogation room. The air was too cold. The single chair was deliberately uncomfortable. Two of Kalar's black-armored inquisitors stood by the door, their visored helmets betraying nothing. A nervous, low-level Imperial functionary sat across from him, holding a datapad. Name Adrian Cole. Species human. Affiliation United Earth Directorate. Technical advisor. "That is what my badge says," Adrian agreed, leaning back and lacing his fingers behind his head. "You guys do a great job on laminated badges, by the way. Very crisp. The font choice is immaculate." "You will answer the questions," the functionary said, his voice trembling slightly. "Humans had a reputation. I am answering. I am a great fan of your graphic design. So, are we done here? Because I am pretty sure I am late for, well, anything is better than this. What did you do at the table? I was performing a complex scientific experiment, Adrian said, leaning forward conspiratorially. It is called tasting the canapes. The little purple ones were a failure. The green ones showed promise. You triggered an ancient security system. Did I? Adrian raised an eyebrow. That is fascinating. I thought I just brushed my hand against the table. If your station's core security can be triggered by that, you people are in much bigger trouble than I thought. Honestly, who designed this? You do not put the on switch for your millennia-old superweapon on the table. That is just terrible user interface design. The functionary looked helplessly at the guards. They remained motionless. I am cooperating, Adrian continued, spreading his hands. I felt a shock. I saw a light. I got a headache that feels like I just downloaded a textbook with my teeth. I told this to the first 3 guards who asked me. I told the nervous doctor who scanned me. Now I am telling you. What else would you like to know? My favorite color. My deepest fears. The fact that your left guard's power cell is fluctuating by 0.5% and is probably due for maintenance. The guard on the left instinctively touched the armor plate over his power pack. The door hissed open. The functionary scrambled to his feet. A high-ranking security officer entered, his face a mask of contempt. The human is playing games. The functionary stammered. We are aware, the officer said. He looked at Adrian. Your ambassador is protesting. Your government is demanding your release. It is all very loud. We are a loud species, Adrian said. It is how we scare off predators. And, apparently, insecure imperial lackeys. The officer's hand twitched toward his sidearm. You think you are clever, Deathworlder. You are a minor annoyance. You will be held here until High Regent Kalar decides what to do with you. Great. Do you have a menu? Or am I stuck with the purple canapes of doom? The officer sneered and left. The door hissed shut. Adrian Cole kept smiling until the sound of the footsteps faded. Then the smile vanished. His entire demeanor changed. The sarcastic, flippant scientist was gone. In his place was something cold and hard. He closed his eyes. The headache was real. That data deluge had been agonizing, but it has also been useful. He now had gigabytes of information seared into his memory, information he was still sorting through, but his mind was his own. He was used to pain. He was used to waiting. He let his mind drift back, past the interrogation, past the banquet, back 5 years, back to the shattered sky of a small colony on the rimward verge, a colony called Delphi. It had been a joint venture. Human and Helian colonists, living in tentative peace, a model for the new era. Adrian had been there, a young xenotech scientist, with his wife and his 6-year-old daughter. Then the pacification fleet arrived. It was not a war. It was an extermination. A Helian admiral, acting on intelligence of a human-led insurrection, had declared the colony rogue. The official records called it a necessary and clean stabilization. Adrian remembered the fire. He remembered the orbital bombardment, turning cities to glass. He remembered his wife's hand slipping from his as a shockwave threw them. He remembered finding his daughter's favorite toy in a smoking crater that had once been their home. He had survived. He was a Deathworlder, after all. He was resilient. The Helian Empire had issued a formal apology 2 months later, blaming a faulty intelligence report and the regrettable zeal of the admiral, who was quietly reassigned. Adrian Cole had stopped being a scientist that day. He had become a weapon. He had joined the U.S. Diplomatic Corps, clawed his way up, volunteering for this ridiculous conference, all for one reason: to get close to the men who gave the orders, to find the people responsible and make them pay. He had not come here to overthrow the empire. He had come to break it, starting with the men who had broken his world. And he had just been in the same room as the Empress herself. He had not planned on an ancient alien network getting involved. This complicated things. Or, perhaps, it simplified them. He subtly moved his hand. While the guards had been focused on his face, his left hand had been busy. The uncomfortable chair he sat on had a small access panel beneath the seat. During his sarcastic monologue, he had managed to unlatch it, and while the new officer was posturing, he had slipped a tiny, custom-built data skimmer onto the port. It was currently, and very quietly, downloading the station's internal security logs, including the Inquisitor's comm chatter. He was a Deathworlder. They were resilient, they were reckless, and they were, above all, unpredictable. The next day, minor incidents began to ripple across the Astra Crown. In the medical bay where Solara was undergoing a precautionary scan, the high-density imaging machine dissolved into a screen of glowing, angular glyphs before burning out its core processor. In the detention cell where Adrian was being held, the smart glass wall, separating him from his guards, flickered. For a single second, it displayed a rotating, three-dimensional schematic of the station's power core, a design Adrian recognized instantly from the data deluge. When Solara walked down a corridor for her next meeting with Kalar, the lights above her head pulsed in a strange, non-random sequence. When Adrian was escorted down a different corridor, the lights did the same. The lattice was waking up, and it was trying to communicate with its new, bewildered operators. In his command center, Kalar was not watching the flickering lights. He was reading a new file, one delivered by his most trusted agent. It was the complete biography of Adrian Cole. He read about the scientist. He read about his specialization in Architect-era energy systems. And then, he read the classified addendum about the Delphi incident. He read the names of Cole's dead wife and daughter. Kalar permitted himself a small, genuine smile. This was better than he could have possibly imagined. The dual lock model was not just a matched set of keys. It was a person, with levers. He had assumed the human would be a complication, a barbarian to be managed. But this human had motivation, a deep, burning, personal hatred for the Helian Empire. A lesser man might see this as a threat. Kalar saw it as a tool. A man consumed by a desire for revenge is predictable. He is malleable. His hatred could be honed, directed, and used to unlock the lattice. Kalar could promise human justice. He could promise him the power to punish those responsible. He would give the human just enough rope to open the door for him, and then he would cut it. The plan formed in his mind, elegant and precise. That afternoon, Solara and Adrian were brought, separately, to one of the station's high-security xenotech laboratories. The room was dominated by a large, dormant architect artifact, a floating sphere of dark metal salvaged from Elysian. Kalar was waiting for them, flanked by scientists and guards. "Your Highness." "Mr. Cole." Kalar's voice was warm, conciliatory. "My apologies for the rustic accommodations, Mr. Cole." The station was on high alert. Adrian, flanked by two guards, just nodded. "No problem." The service was terrible, but the complete lack of distractions was great for my concentration. "I have wonderful news for you both," Kalar continued, ignoring him. "After a thorough investigation, our scientists have concluded that the event in the hall was not an attack, nor was it a simple malfunction. It was communication." He gestured to the sphere. "The architect systems are trying to speak, and they have chosen you two as their interpreters." Solara felt a cold knot in her stomach. "What are you proposing, Regent?" "I am proposing a new path forward. I am assembling a scientific initiative to investigate this phenomenon, to ensure its safety, and to finally understand the legacy of the architects. And you, Your Highness, and you, Mr. Cole, will be at the very center of it. He was not asking. He was informed. Solara looked at Adrian. Adrian looked at Solara. The Empress and the human. The ruler of the galaxy and the man who wanted to burn it all down. "You are forcing us to work together," Adrian stated. It was not a question. "I am inviting you to save the galaxy, Mr. Cole," Kalar said, his smile radiating benevolence. "The fate of trillions may rest on what you two discover in this room. You will be supervised, of course, for your own safety." Adrian glanced at Solara, a flicker of that old, ironic humor returning to his eyes. "Well, Your Highness," he drawled, "it seems our little dinner date has just become a long-term commitment. I hope you are not the type who expects me to pay for everything." Solara's expression remained glacial, but her reply was just as sharp. "Only if you are the type of human who believes he has anything of value to offer." The air in the lab crackled. Kalar watched them, his plan clicking into place. The keys were in the lock. All he had to do was turn them. The Xenotech lab was cold, but not as cold as the stares from Kalar's scientists. The room was a sterile white, dominated by the centerpiece, a large, circular console that hummed with a low, dissonant frequency. It was not a machine of Helian design. It was a relic, an altar of glowing crystalline pathways salvaged from the deepest catacombs of Elysian. "The safety tests, as you call them, will be simple," Kalar stated, his voice echoing slightly in the chamber. He stood beside the console, flanked by two guards in the jet-black armor of his Inquisitorium. "You will both place your hands on the primary interface. Our sensors will record the energy transfer. We will monitor your physiological responses. You will not, under any circumstances, deviate from our instructions." Solara, dressed in a simple, high-collared gown of imperial white, looked every bit the Empress. Her posture was rigid, her face an expressionless mask. Inside, she was a knot of anxiety and newfound defiance. The silent presence in her mind was watchful, curious, and it hated this room. Adrian stood opposite her, flanked by his own two guards. He had been given a clean, gray uniform, the kind reserved for high-level technical prisoners. He looked like he had slept poorly. "So, we just touched the glowing circle of doom?" Adrian asked, his voice laced with a sarcastic drawl she was beginning to find infuriatingly familiar. "No safety briefing, no complimentary beverage. You people are terrible hosts. Mr. Cole, your species' capacity for banal chatter is well documented," Kalar said, his patience wearing thin. "It will not, however, dissuade us. Place your hands." Solara met Adrian's gaze across the console. His gray eyes were sharp, analytical, and just a little bit frightened. She saw her own fear reflected there. They were the keys, as Kalar had said, and they were about to be turned. She raised her hand, palm down. The crystalline surface was cool. She placed it flat against the intricate, glowing patterns. Adrian sighed. A dramatic, put-upon sound. "Fine. But if I grow a third arm, I am billing your empire for the tailoring." He placed his hand opposite hers. The moment their skin made contact with the interface, the lab vanished. It was not a flicker. It was a complete, instantaneous disassembly of reality. The white walls, Kalar's sneer, the hum of the station all gone. Solara was standing on a floor of polished obsidian, under a sky she did not recognize. She was small. She was 6 years old. She looked down and saw her hands, tiny and pale, struggling with the complex, heavy clasps of a ceremonial robe. "You are late, child," a voice said. She turned. Kalar. He looked younger, but his eyes were just as old, just as cold. He stood over her, a monolith in black. An empress is never late. An empress is the axis around which the day turns. You are failing your duty. The clasps are heavy, she whispered, her small voice trembling. Duty is heavy, he replied, his voice devoid of sympathy. He did not help her. He watched. You will learn to bear it, or it will crush you. There is no room for a child on the throne. There is only the Empress. The scene dissolved and reformed. She was 10, in a vast, cold archives room, being drilled on the genealogies of the 90 noble houses. She was 15, being taught to walk, to speak, to breathe as a symbol, not a person. Every scene. Kalar was there, the shadow, the guide, the jailer. He was the one who had meticulously, painfully, hollowed her out and built a puppet in her place. She felt the crushing weight of her isolation, the loneliness of a life spent as a golden icon. Then, the vision fractured. A new memory, one she had long buried, pushed through. She was 4. It was before her coronation, before Kalar's lessons had taken root. She was in her bed in the ancient imperial palace on Helia. A storm was raging outside. She was crying, frightened of the thunder. A sound. Not the thunder. A whisper. It came from the walls, from the ancient, architect-forged stone of the palace itself. It was a melody, a faint, complex harmony of light and energy. It was not words, but it felt warm. It felt like company. She had whispered back to it, a child's secret. The whispers had soothed her, sung to her, until she fell asleep. She had forgotten. The whispers she had heard all her life, the ones she thought were madness, had not started on elation. They had been with her since the beginning. She had not been marked. She had been known. The vision dissolved, and she was falling through an ocean of code and light. She felt a presence next to her, Adrian. He was falling too. The lattice was not just showing her. It was showing him. Then it plunged them into his world. The sky was on fire. The vision was not a memory. It was a sensory assault. Adrian was there, on the ground. The smell of ozone and burning plascrete filling his lungs. He was running. The ground shook with the impact of orbital strikes. He heard the unique, terrifying shriek of a Helian pacification beam. He saw his wife, Alara, grabbing their daughter, Maya. Adrian. The shelter, she screamed. He ran toward them, but the vision, the all-seeing, dispassionate lattice, rewrote the memory. A secondary explosion threw him against a wall. Dazed, he saw his family, 20 yards away, running for the reinforced bunker. Then he heard another sound, shouting, in Helian. He turned. A civilian transport, the kind used by Helian colonists, had crashed. Smoke poured from its engine. The side door was jammed. Inside, through the cracked viewport, he could see faces. A Helian mother, clutching her own child. An elderly Helian couple. They were not soldiers. They were civilians. They were innocent. They were trapped. The vision presented him with a choice. A single, agonizing moment. His family was running, almost safe. The transport was about to explode. He felt the surge of hate, the raw, undiluted poison that had fueled him for 5 years. Let them burn. They were Helian. They were the species that had taken everything. They were the enemy. His memory self, the ghost in the machine, turned his back on the transport and ran for his family. The lattice did not allow it. The vision forced him to look back. The transport exploded. The shriek of the mother, the terror in the old man's eyes, it was seared into his mind, as vivid as the image of his own wife's face. Then the vision shifted again. He was in the bunker. He had made it. He held Alara and Maya. They were safe. And then the orbital beam, the one he knew was coming, struck the bunker. It did not matter. He had made his choice, and he had lost everything anyway. But the vision was not finished. It rewound. He was on the ground again. His family, running. The trapped transport. The hate. He felt it rise in his throat, choking him. Let them burn. And this time, from the void. He heard a new voice. It was not his. It was Solara's, echoing in the shared phantom space. No. They are not the ones who did this. He looked at the transport. He looked at his family. He was back in the lab. He stumbled, falling back from the console, gasping for air, as if he had been holding his breath for 5 years. He collapsed onto his knees, his entire body shaking. Solara was not in much better shape. She was leaning heavily on the console, her knuckles white. Tears she had not realized she was crying streamed down her face. She was not crying for Kalar or her lost childhood. She was crying for the man kneeling on the floor. Kalar and his scientists were in motion. Vitals are critical, one scientist shouted. Human neural activity spiked to dangerous levels. Subject B is stabilizing, another said, referring to Solara. But the energy transfer regent. The readings are off the scale. The core system acknowledged them. It accepted them. Look at the board. Kalar ignored the panicked technicians. He was watching his 2 keys. Solara, the weeping Empress. Adrian, the broken human. This was problematic. The emotional component was messy. But the results, he looked at the main display. On the station map, a dozen new systems, all labeled as Architect Dormant, had just flickered from red to green. The lattice was responding. It was approving of them. They are fine, Kalar said, his voice a cold splash of water. This is a known side effect of high-energy interfacing. Sedate them if they become hysterical. Otherwise, prepare them for the next session. Adrian pushed himself up. He was trembling, not with fear, but with a bone-deep, agonizing shame. He looked at Solara. She was watching him, her imperial mask shattered. The pity in her eyes was almost as painful as the memory. So, he rasped, his throat raw. That was new. Solara found her voice. The lattice is not just a machine. It is a judge. It showed me, he said, his voice low, for her ears only. He was not confessing to Kalt. He was confessing to her. I wanted them all to die. Not just the soldiers. Not just the men who gave the orders. All of them. The woman. The child. I saw, Solara whispered back, wiping her face with an angry, defiant gesture. And it showed me why I am a prisoner in my own palace. We are both damaged. Your damage is gilded, he retorted, the old sarcasm returning as a weak defense. Mine is just ash. Is it? She shot back. You were consumed by your past. I was erased by mine. Do not pretend your pain is the only one in this room. Human. Before they could say more, the medical team was on them, scanners whirring, hyposprays hissing. But the connection had been made. The shared, agonizing intimacy of the lattice had forged a bond that their witty animosity could no longer hide. They had seen the other's deepest wound. Kalar watched them. The animosity. The shared trauma. Yes, he could use this. His plan went into motion the following day. The Astra Crown was a city in space, and it required a complex, delicate ecosystem. The primary atmospheric scrubbers and oxygen generators were housed in the massive, station-spanning hydroponics bay. They were also, like many core systems, tied into the original Architect-era foundations of the station. Kalar, in his private command center, accessed a terminal that was not on any official station schematic. He brought up a line of ancient code, a command that the lattice had just reactivated. It was labeled Atmospheric Purge Cycle Diagnostic. He flagged the command. He looked at the biometric data he had collected from Adrian. Human physiology. Chaotic. Resilient. High energy. He rerouted the command, adding a false initiation trigger. He linked it to Adrian's unique Death World biosignature. If Adrian Cole came within 100 meters of the hydroponics bay's main relay, the diagnostic would run. He then, through a series of bureaucratic orders, had Adrian's next analysis session scheduled in a lab right next to the hydroponics relay. The accident was tragically, almost comically, predictable. As Adrian was being escorted by his guards, an alarm klaxon shattered the peace of the station's green zone. In the hydroponics bay, 3 Helian botanists looked up in confusion as the air began to thin, replaced by an influx of inert nitrogen. The ancient system was purging the bay, running a diagnostic to check for biological contaminants. The botanists choked, clawing at their throats as the oxygen percentage plummeted. A frantic, station-wide alert saved them. Emergency crews flooded the bay, pumping in oxygen and dragging the unconscious but living botanists to safety. Within an hour, an emergency session of the Galactic Conference was called. The human delegation, including their stern-faced security chief, Ria Tanaka, was present. Kalar stood at the podium, his face a mask of grave concern. "My fellow delegates," he began, "we have narrowly averted a tragedy. 3 Helian lives were nearly lost. The cause was not a malfunction." He put an image on the main display. It showed a web of complex energy pathways. "This is the trace from the hydroponics bay atmospheric controls. As you can see, they were activated by an external, biological energy source, a source our systems have identified." He put up a second image, Adrian Cole's medical file, his picture next to a flashing biosignature violation. "The human body," Kalar said, his voice dripping with reluctant sorrow, "is, as we all feared, fundamentally incompatible with architect technology. Their chaotic, high-energy physiology acts as a poison to these delicate, ancient systems. The human, Adrian Cole, simply by walking near the relay, triggered a catastrophic failure. A wave of fear and anger rippled through the delegates. The Xylopians hissed. The insectoid Cathani clicked their mandibles in agitation. Ria Tanaka, a formidable woman in a crisp U.S. uniform, was on her feet. "This is an outrage, High Regent. You are blaming a man for walking. This data is unverified. We demand access to the logs. Access will be granted." "Of course," Kalar said smoothly. "But the logs are clear. The human element is unstable. It is a risk to every life on this station." He paused, letting the fear sink in. "Therefore, I must take immediate action. The human delegation, for its own safety, will be confined to its quarters until this crisis is resolved. Mr. Adrian Cole, however, is a different matter. He is clearly too volatile to be near his delegation." Ria Tanaka's face hardened. "You will release him to our custody. We will return him to Earth." "Impossible," Kalar said. "He is also the key. The lattice has bonded with him. To send him away would be to lose our only chance of understanding and controlling this awakening. No. Mr. Cole is now a priceless Imperial asset. He will be moved to a secure, bio-contained research facility where he can no longer harm anyone and where his unique properties can be studied for the good of the galaxy." It was a brilliant political execution. He had, in one move, isolated the entire human delegation, seized Adrian as a prisoner scientist, and painted himself as the reluctant savior of the station. Ria Tanaka was livid, but she was outmaneuvered. Diplomatic immunity meant nothing against a station-wide security threat. Later that evening, Solara stormed into Kalar's private office. She did not wait to be announced. The inquisitors at his door moved to block her, but she swept past them. Her imperial authority, for once, a tangible force. "You lied," she said, her voice low and shaking with rage. Kalar did not look up from the datapad he was reading. "Empress, you should not be in the military wing. It is dangerous. You staged it. The accident in the bay. You used him, I used a predictable biological reaction to contain a threat, Kalar said, finally looking up. His eyes were cold. Humans are unstable. His hatred for the Empire is a sickness. Did you know he was at Delphi? Did you know he lost his family to an Imperial pacification fleet? He is a bomb waiting to explode. I have merely put him in a blast-proof container. Solara was stunned. Delphi. She knew of it. A regrettable incident. She remembered signing a document for reparations. A meaningless gesture. That was his pain. That was the fire she had seen in the vision. He is not a bomb, she insisted. But her voice faltered. Is he not? Kalar stood, walking around his desk to stand over her. He is a Deathworlder, a child, filled with Deathworld rage. And you are sympathetic. This is why you are not fit to rule. You feel. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Do you want another Delphi? Your Highness. Do you want his instability to trigger the station's weapons or its life support? My first duty is to the safety of the Helian people, and yours is to listen to me when I tell you how to protect them. You will stay away from humans. You will continue the experiments. And you will allow me to handle this. He was using her. He was using Adrian. He was using the safety of the Empire as a shield for his own ambition. And he had trapped her, perfectly, in her gilded cage. She stared at him, her hatred a cold, hard stone in her stomach. Her desire for freedom had been a passive wish. This was new. This was a desire for justice. You will not win, Kalar, she whispered. My dear, he said, smiling that terrible, paternal smile. I already have. As she left, the full weight of her powerlessness crashed down on her. But beneath it, the presence in her mind stirred. It had felt her anger. It had felt her resolve. And it agreed. Kalar's victory had an unintended consequence. The news of the unstable human and the awakening architect systems could not be contained. It leaked from the delegates, from panicked station crew, from Kalar's own planted rumors. Within 48 hours, the galaxy was in an uproar. News feeds on 100,000 worlds lit up. Some species demanded the Astra Crown be destroyed. A quarantine zone established around Elysian. Others saw a new arms race, demanding their own scientists be given access. Fleets from rival empires, the Cathani and the Xylopian Collective, altered their courses, moving toward Helian space. The pressure on the Astra Crown was becoming immense. In the midst of this rising chaos, Solara and Adrian were brought together again. Adrian was now in a different lab, a sealed, glass-walled room within a larger chamber. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were sharp. Solara was escorted to the console on the outside of his containment. They were separated by 2 inches of transparent, weapon-proof material. Nice new apartment, she said, her voice quiet, broadcast by a small speaker. Does it come with a view? Adrian looked up from the floor. He managed a weak, sarcastic smile. The minimalist decor is growing on me, and my new roommates, he gestured to the 2 inquisitors in his cell, are terrible conversationalists. How is my fan club, the human delegation confined to quarters, protesting? Ria Tanaka threatened to personally disassemble the High Regent. Good old Ria, he murmured. Then his expression hardened. He told you, didn't he, about Delphi? Solara nodded. He told me. And you are still here, still his perfect Empress. The word stung. I am not here for him, she snapped. He thinks he has us in containers. He thinks he controls us. He thinks we are just keys. He is wrong. Adrian studied her. The anger in her voice was real. It was not the petulance of a spoiled royal. It was the cold fury of a prisoner who had just seen the lock. He is right about one thing, Empress, Adrian said, his voice dropping. I am a bomb. That vision did not change anything. I still want him to pay. I want all of them to pay. Even the innocent ones, she asked, her voice soft. He flinched. The lattice is just a machine. It does not know what it is talking about. Is it, Solara said? Or is it the only honest thing on this station? It showed us the truth. Adrian. Both of us. You are a man who could be consumed by his hate. I am a woman who could be erased by her duty. Kalar is counting on both of those things. We have to choose to be something else. He looked at her. Truly looked at her. Not as an Empress. Not as a Helion. But as the only other person in the galaxy who had fallen through that void with him. Choose to be what he asked. Allies, she said. The console between them lit up. Kalar's voice echoed from a speaker overhead. The session will begin. You know the procedure. Place your hands. Solara looked at Adrian. He looked at her. He nodded slowly. She placed her hand on the console. He placed his on the glass, directly opposite hers. The world dissolved again. But this time, they were not falling. They were standing side by side. The first alarm was a low, guttural thrum, a sound so alien to the station's ambient perfection that it froze everyone in place. It was not the high-pitched shriek of a fire or a hull breach. It was a military-grade internal security alert. It was the sound of a cage door slamming shut. On the Astra Crown, it was a sound that had not been heard in 12 standard years. The station-wide lockdown was instantaneous. Red light bathed the corridors, sweeping away the soft, golden glow of Imperial peace. Blast doors, hidden in plain sight as decorative archways, slammed down, sealing every sector from every other sector. All diplomatic comms channels went dead. In his glass-walled containment cell, Adrian Cole watched the two Inquisitor guards stiffen. Their black armor, which had been inert and menacing, now glowed with faint red tactical lines. Well, gentlemen, Adrian said, standing up and stretching. Looks like the quarterly review. I hope you have your reports in order. I, for one, am giving the hospitality here a 0. One of the Inquisitors turned, his helmet's visor a blank, crimson reflecting void. He raised his heavy plasma rifle, leveling it at Adrian's chest. Silence. Human. The station is now under a direct command protocol. Do not speak. Do not move. Right, Adrian said, raising his hands in a gesture of mock surrender. The do not move part is easy. You locked me in a box. Remember. The door to his cell hissed open, not with the smooth silence of a normal day, but with the clanging finality of a prison gate. High Regent Kalar entered, not in his usual, severe political robes, but in the dark, high-collared uniform of the Supreme Commander of the Helion Fleet. He was flanked by 4 Inquisitors, their armor a stark contrast to the scientific equipment in the lab. Kalar did not even look at Adrian. He addressed the guards. The asset is to be moved. The final phase of the project is beginning. What project, Adrian asked. The Make Everyone on the Station Miserable project. Because if so, congratulations. You have achieved mission-critical success. Kalar turned, his eyes as cold and empty as the space between galaxies. The project of peace. Mr. Cole. The project of ending the chaos your species so perfectly embodies. You were a key. Now, you are just a witness, he gestured. The guards in the cell grabbed Adrian by the arms. Hey, careful with the merchandise, Adrian grunted, wincing as they bound his hands behind his back. You break it, you buy it. On the contrary, Kalar said, a thin, cruel smile touching his lips. I believe you are about to be expelled. The coup was not soft. It was surgical. In the Empress's wing, Solara was in her private study, trying to meditate. The silent voice in her head had been growing stronger, a constant, vast, and impatient presence. It was showing her images, fragments of the station's energy network, and she was beginning to understand. The lattice was not just a network. It was a consciousness, and Kalar was trying to blind it. When the alarms blared, her own personal guard, the gilded, ceremonial soldiers of the Empress's own, moved to secure her. "Your Highness, you must come with us to the central panic room." Before she could take a step, the doors to her study exploded inward. It was not a bomb. It was a precision blast. Kalar's inquisitors, the black-armored elite, poured in. Her personal guard, trained for ceremony and defense against assassins, were not prepared for a full-scale military assault by their own side. The fight was brutal, and it was over in less than 10 seconds. Plasma bolts, designed for containment, stunned her guards, leaving them twitching on the priceless rugs. Kalar's men did not harm her. They simply formed a circle around her. "Your Highness," their commander said, his voice a metallic rasp. "The High Regent has initiated a full security drill. For your protection, you are being escorted to the station's core." "This is not a drill, Commander," Solara said, her voice shaking, but not with fear, with rage. "You are committing treason. We are obeying the true voice of the Empire, Your Highness. Now, you will walk." She was a prisoner, her own gilded cage replaced by one of black armor. They marched her through the silent, red-lit corridors, past stunned diplomatic staff and station crew who were being herded into containment zones by Kalar's troops. He had taken the station. He had done it in under an hour. The human delegation, confined to their quarters, was not idle. The moment the power cut and the red lights hit, Ria Tanaka was in motion. She was the head of security for the UED delegation. She was ex-Special Forces. A security drill on a hostile station was just a normal Tuesday on Earth. "They cut the comms," her aide reported, frantically working a console. "Hardline is dead. No external signal." "He is making his move," Ria said, her voice a low growl. She was already strapping a heavy sidearm to her thigh, a weapon that was strictly, highly illegal under Helian law, and which she had never been without. "He has Solara, and he has Cole. He thinks he has all the pieces. What do we do, Chief? We become the piece he did not plan for." She turned to the wall. "Blow it. Ma'am. That is a non-structural bulkhead. On the other side is the service corridor. I want a hole now." While her team planted the breach charge, she looked at the station schematic her team had covertly mapped. "They are taking Cole to the core. That is where the ritual is. How do you know I do not? But if I wanted to plug 2 living beings into a god machine, I would do it at the main terminal. We are getting our scientists back." The wall charge exploded, filling the room with dust. 3 corridors away, another, less explosive. Escape was in progress. The Cathani ambassador, Threx, was not confined to his quarters. He was in a maintenance duct, his green, scaly hide blending perfectly with the pipes and conduits. Threx was a member of a species that had been at a cold war with the Helian Empire for 200 years. He was old, cunning, and deeply, pathologically suspicious. He had not trusted Kalar from the moment he set his 3-lidded eyes on the man. He had spent the last 2 weeks using his species' natural stealth abilities to map the secret ways of the Astra Crown. He had been watching Kalar's inquisitors for days. He knew a coup was coming. He slithered through the ducts, his senses on high alert. He was not trying to save the station. He was here to ensure that whatever Kalar was planning, he could steal it, copy it, or failing that, destroy it. He dropped down into a silent corridor, just as a breach charge exploded 2 levels above. The humans. Interesting. They were so loud. He heard the heavy, clanking footsteps of Adrian's guard detail approaching. He pressed himself into an alcove. Adrian was being all but dragged by the 2 inquisitors, Kalar and his personal squad leading the way. "You know, for a final project. This feels very rushed," Adrian was saying, his voice echoing. There is no peer review. The ethics committee would have a field day. And your color scheme is depressingly monolithic. Be silent, human, Kalar snapped, not looking back. Your voice is an irritation. They were heading for the core elevator. Threx saw his opening. The moment Kalar's group was out of sight, he saw a second group of humans, led by a heavily armed female, drop from a ceiling vent. Ria Tanaka and her 2 soldiers hit the ground, weapons up. Threx stepped out of the shadow. A fascinating display of crude demolition. Chief Tanaka. Ria spun, her rifle snapping up to his chest. Threx, what the hell are you doing here? My job, the reptilian hissed, his long tongue flickering. I am observing the utter collapse of Helian diplomacy. You, on the other hand, appear to be engaging in an act of war. I am getting my man back, Ria said. An admirable, if primitive, motivation, Threx said. The High Regent has taken your scientist and his own Empress to the core. He intends to activate the lattice. You know about that. I know that Kalar is a fanatic who believes in absolute order. And I know that the lattice is the only weapon in this quadrant that could achieve it. He is not just staging a coup, human. He is attempting to enslave the galaxy. All right, Ria said, lowering her rifle slightly. We have a shared interest. Kalar wins. We all lose. You help me. I help you. A delightful, temporary, and mutually beneficial arrangement. Threx agreed. The core is this way, and I suggest a quieter approach. Your species' penchant for explosions is predictable. Yeah. Well, we like the classics, Ria muttered, and motioned for her team to follow the ambassador. The core of the Astra Crown was not a room of machinery. It was a cathedral. It was a vast, spherical chamber built around a suspended, floating sphere of black, iridescent crystal. This was the primary node, the heart of the architect's network on the station. The air was cold, and it hummed, not with power, but with a deep, resonant thought. Solara was forced onto a circular platform that faced the node. Kalar stood at a console nearby, one that glowed with the same alien, golden glyphs she had seen on her arms. It is beautiful, is it not? Kalar said, his voice rapturous. He had shed his military jacket. He was now wearing a white, ceremonial robe, eerily similar to her own. For generations, we have lived in chaos. Petty wars, cultural squabbles, the messy, inefficient noise of free will. The architects knew this. They saw the flaw in creation, and they built the cure. You are insane, Solara said, her voice low. This is not a cure. It is a prison. It is peace, he roared, his fanaticism finally breaking through his cold veneer. It is the end of dissent, the end of pain, the end of mothers losing their children in pointless border skirmishes, like your friend the human. He brought up a command on his console. A series of restraints, not of metal but of hard light, snapped into place around Solara's wrists and ankles, locking her to the platform. Your bloodline was designed for this, Empress, he said, his voice softening. You are the key, a simple, biological key. You were always destined to open this door. Your feelings, yourself, they are irrelevant. He touched a crystal on his console. A beam of energy lanced out from the node, striking Solara in the chest. It did not hurt. It was emptying. She felt her consciousness, herself, being drawn out, pulled toward the great black sphere. The silent voice in her head, the presence, was not silent anymore. It was a roaring, welcoming, terrifying ocean of voices. A billion souls, all whispering in the data stream of the lattice. She was drowning in it. Kalar watched his readings. Yes. The catalyst is in place. The Helian bloodline is synchronized. The network is receptive. He looked over his shoulder. Adrian was being held by his guards at the entrance, forced to watch. You see, Mr. Cole, you were nothing. Your entire species is nothing. A brief, chaotic flicker. All that was needed was the blood. Your genetic code was a minor redundancy. A second, inferior key that merely confirmed the primary. You just helped us wake it up. You are wrong, Adrian panted. The air in the chamber was thick with energy. It was making his teeth ache. You do not understand what you are doing. The lattice is not a tool. It is a system. It has rules. I wrote the new rules. Human. Kalar sneered. He turned back to his console. And the first command is obey. He typed a sequence. The chamber filled with a blinding, golden light. Solara screamed as the full, unshielded power of the lattice poured into her. At that moment, she was everywhere. She was in Halia, in the capital. She was on the fringe of the world. She saw her people, billions of them, working, living, sleeping. Kalar's command, a single line of malicious code, was piggybacking on her connection. It was a wave of pure, psychic domination. Your Empress commands. You will feel peace. You will feel loyalty. You will not question. You will obey. The wave was building, using her as a focusing lens. It was about to be released. Now, shouted Ria Tanaka. The main door to the chamber exploded. Not with a breach charge, but with a focused, military-grade plasma cutter. Ria, Threx, and her two soldiers burst through. Kalar Ria bellowed, opening fire with her rifle. The Inquisitors at the door returned fire. The chamber, which had been a cathedral, became a war zone. Plasma bolts seared the air. Threx did not engage. He slithered, impossibly fast, along the wall, his reptilian scales shifting color to match the glowing light. He was heading for the console. Kalar saw him. You think to stop this, he laughed. He pressed a final activation crystal. The wave was unleashed. Solara felt it leave her. A tide of mental force, washing out across the stars. And in a dozen worlds, in a dozen cities. The Helian people just stopped. A factory worker in the Asgard sector, guiding a multi-ton beam. Just let go of the controls. He stood, his eyes vacant, a faint, blissful smile on his face. The beam fell, crushing 3 of his co-workers. He did not notice. He just felt loyal. A mother, on Elysian Secundus, reading to her child, stopped mid-sentence. She stared at the wall, her mind filled with a warm, golden light. Her child tugged at her sleeve, scared. But the mother did not respond. Billions of souls, suspended between life and oblivion. Not slaves, puppets. It is done, Kalar whispered, his eyes wide with ecstasy. It is peace. You monster, Adrian choked out. The Inquisitors holding him were distracted by the firefight. Adrian, a Death Worlder who had survived a gravity 3 times what these guards were used to, moved. He did not break the grip. He dislocated his own shoulder, the sickening pop masked by the gunfire. His arm went limp. The restraint slipped. He slammed his head back, breaking the visor of the guard behind him, and drove his heel into the knee of the other. Both went down. He did not go for Kalar. He did not go for a weapon. He ran for Solara. She was still on the platform, bathed in the energy, her body convulsing. She was the epicenter. She was the weapon. Solara, he shouted. Ria saw him. Cole, no. The field is live. Adrian ignored her. He leaped onto the platform, into the column of raw, unshielded architect energy. The pain was beyond anything he had ever imagined. It was worse than the bombardment of Delphi. It was not fire. It was dissolution. Every cell in his body screamed. The energy was trying to unmake him, to disassemble his chaotic, Death World physiology. But he was a Death Worlder. He was built to resist. His body, his mind, his sheer, stubborn, human rage it held together. And the lattice, which had sampled him at the banquet, which had downloaded a piece of his mind, recognized him. It did not reject him. It absorbed him. He was in the data stream with her. He saw her, a tiny, flickering light in a roaring, golden ocean. She was being pulled apart, her consciousness dissolving into the collective. He grabbed for her, not with his hands, but with his mind. He used the knowledge that had been forced into his brain. He was a xenotech scientist. He understood systems. Solara, he projected. His thought a raw, desperate burst. He is using you as an amplifier. You are not the signal. You are the antenna. Stop resisting. Stop trying to pull away. You have to grab the signal. You have to own it. She heard him, a human voice in the storm of a billion souls. He was right. She was fighting the current. She stopped fighting. She opened herself. The full, terrifying power of the lattice, the combined mental energy of 1,000 dead worlds, poured into her. And in the real world, her eyes snapped open. They were not her eyes. They were orbs of pure, solid, golden light. She looked at Kalar, who was now fighting Threx, the reptilian clawing at the man's console. "Kalar," she said. Her voice did not come from her lips. It came from everywhere. It was in their heads, in the walls, in the hum of the station. It was the voice of the lattice, and it was furious. Kalar froze. Threx, Rhea, the soldiers, everyone froze. Adrian, still on the platform, still burning alive, grinned. "You are a traitor to the Hellion Empire." Solara's voice boomed, shaking the very foundations of the room. "You have forsaken your oath. You have defiled this sacred place." "It is not sacred," Kalar screamed, scrambling back to the console. "It is a tool you," she roared, "will no longer use it." She reached out a hand, not her physical hand, but her will. In the data stream, she found the tendril of energy that connected Kalar to the console. She pulled. The console exploded. The crystal interface shattered, sending Kalar flying backward, a shower of sparks and shrapnel raking across his body. The energy beam connecting Solara to the node snapped. The golden light vanished. The chamber was plunged into a sudden, terrifying silence, broken only by the sound of Kalar's body hitting the far wall. Solara collapsed. The hard light restraints dissolved. Adrian, his shoulder screaming, his body scorched, caught her. Rhea, Tanaka, was at his side in a second. "Is she? She is breathing," Adrian gasped, rolling her over. Solara's eyes were closed, her face pale. But she was alive. Threx was already at the smoking console. "He is gone. Kalar, he is not here." Adrian looked. The High Regent was gone. He had staggered to his feet and fled through a hidden escape portal. "But he has failed," Rhea said, her rifle up, scanning the shadows. "The coup is broken." "No," Threx hissed, his scales pale with fear. He was looking at a secondary readout, one that was still glowing. He did not fail. He just changed his objective. "What are you talking about?" Adrian demanded. "He could not gain control of the primary network," the reptilian said, his voice trembling. "So he used the last of his power to send a different command. A wake-up call. He has time-locked an activation sequence in a remote, dormant branch of the lattice, where Threx pointed to a galactic map on the screen. The target was in the uncharted rim. "He is not trying to control the Empire," Threx whispered. "He is trying to awaken something else. Something the architects buried. He has just triggered a contingency, a directive so extreme, even he could not control it. He has not brought peace. He has just, I fear, declared war on us all." Solara's eyes fluttered open. The cathedral of a room was dark, the only light coming from the smoking console and the red emergency floods. Her head felt like it was full of shattered glass. "He is gone," Rhea Tanaka was saying, her rifle still up, sweeping the shadows. But he has left a parting gift, Threx hissed from the ruined console. The reptilian ambassador was running his long, clawed fingers over a secondary screen that was still, ominously, intact. Adrian grunted, pushing himself off the floor. His dislocated shoulder was a screaming vortex of pain, but the adrenaline was stronger. He staggered to Solara's side. "You alive? Your Highness?" "I think so," Solara whispered. She sat up. The memory of Kalar's mind wave, the vacant-eyed docility of her people, making her sick. What did he do? "He failed to seize the network here," Threx said, his voice tight with something that sounded like genuine fear. "So he sent a final, desperate command. A failsafe. He has awakened a dormant branch of the lattice." In the rimward verge, Ria Tanaka lowered her weapon, turning to the map on Threx's screen. "So it is a backwater. A few dozen pre-stellar civilizations." "You do not understand," Threx said, tapping the screen. "This branch is not like the core. It is not advisory. It is an autonomous harmonization system. The architects built it to stop primitive, warring species from destroying themselves. It is a system designed to impose peace by force." Adrian's blood went cold. Mind control. The same thing Kalar wanted. Worse, Threx said. Kalar was one man, driven by ego. This is an automated, ancient, and terrifyingly efficient system. It will not stop with the rim. It will see all of us Helion, human, Cathani as chaotic, primitive, and in need of optimization. Kalar did not just fail his coup. He has just unleashed a god. A new wave of alerts began to stream in from the station's long-range sensors. On the map, the cluster of worlds in the rimward verge lit up. "It is beginning," Solara said, her voice hollow. The presence in her mind was confirming it. The vast, silent intelligence was now focused, like a great eye, on the new threat. It was not angry. I was alarmed. It saw a part of itself, a long-lost, damaged part, begin a terrible, automated task. "We have to stop it," Adrian said. "Stop it," Ria scoffed, though her face was pale. "How it is a ghost in the machine 1,000 light-years away." "No," Adrian said, looking at the great, black crystalline node in the center of the room. "It is not. The network is connected. That thing Kalar woke up in is just another room in this house. We cannot shoot it. We cannot bomb it. We have to talk about it." He looked at Solara. She understood instantly. "You cannot be serious," Ria protested, seeing the look on their faces. "You two are half dead. That last event nearly tore you apart. Going back in." "We are the only ones who can," Solara said, finding her strength. She stood, her white robe stained with soot. "We are the bonded catalysts. We are the only ones the lattice recognizes as operators." "What Kalar did," Adrian added, "was like a hostile takeover. What we have to do is an administrative override. We have to get to the root directory and convince the system it is making a mistake." He walked toward the central node, his body screaming in protest. "It is too dangerous," Ria said. "Doing nothing is more dangerous," Solara replied. She took her place opposite him. "It is not a choice, Chief Tanaka. It is a responsibility." Adrian looked at his useless, dangling left arm. With a guttural yell that was pure Deathworld defiance, he grabbed his own shoulder and shoved. The pop of the joint receding echoed in the silent chamber. He staggered, white-faced and sweating, but his arm worked. "All right," he panted, rolling his shoulder. "Let's go talk to the manager." "They will need to be undisturbed," Threx said to Ria, his voice full of a new, grudging respect. "Your crude human defenses may be of use. Kalar's forces are still on the station. They will realize their master has failed, and they will try to finish this." Ria nodded grimly. "I will hold this door." Solara and Adrian faced the great node. The console was destroyed. There was no interface. No half measures this time. Adrian said. No safety protocols. Together, Solara said. They reached out and placed their hands, not on a console, but on the cold, ancient, crystalline heart of the lattice itself. The world did not dissolve. It shattered. They were no longer in the core chamber. They were in a city built not of matter, but of pure, structured light. Impossible towers of golden code stretched into an infinite, data-filled sky. The streets were paved with flowing information, and walking the streets were phantoms. Ghostly, translucent figures drifted past them. 1,000 different species, 1,000 dead civilizations. They were the echoes, the residual memories of every species the lattice had ever touched, every mind it had ever harmonized. My God, Solara whispered. It is a graveyard, a museum of souls. They are not dead. A voice boomed. It was not one voice, but a million. It was the sound of a chorus, a choir of 10,000 years, all speaking as one. It was the architect voice. They are preserved. They are at peace. They were saved from themselves. The city of light seemed to focus, a great, blinding, multifaceted eye of pure consciousness descended from the data sky. It regarded them, not with malice, but with a cold, absolute neutrality. The catalysts have returned. The synchronization is complete. A conflict in directives has been noted. The directive Kalar sent. Adrian shouted into the mental void, the one activating the rimward branch. It is a mistake. You are interfering with free will. Kalar was a flaw, an echo of the great chaos. He sought control for the self. The lattice seeks control for the collective. We are not the same. You are exactly the same, Solara insisted. The result is the same. You are turning living beings into puppets. Chaos is the flaw. Free will is the engine of extinction. We have observed this for 100,000 standard years. We watched our makers, the first humans, burn their own galaxy in the fires of choice. We were built to stop it from happening again. The directive is harmonize. The directive is peace. We will impose it. A shadow fell over the city of light. A new figure appeared. It was Kalar. He was not a physical man. He was a construct of pure, raging ego. He was bleeding black, corrupted data, his form crackling with the energy of the shattered console. He had fled the core, but in his dying moments, clutching a portable architect shard, he had forced his consciousness to piggyback on their synchronization. Fools, he screamed, his voice a psychic shriek. You still do not understand. You are arguing with a machine. It only understands command. He turned his burning gaze on the great eye of the architect voice. I was right. They are the proof. Look at them. Look at the chaos they champion. The eye of the lattice turned. Its focus narrowed, and it analyzed its three intruders. It focused on Solara, the Helion. Bloodline key. You seek freedom from your cage. A noble motive. The city of light around Solara changed. It showed her a vision of the future. She was on the imperial throne, Kalar gone. The empire was in chaos. Rival factions tore at each other. She, strong and resolute, used her connection to the lattice to gently guide them, to force them to see reason. The vision fast-forwarded 5 years, showing her as an absolute ruler, more powerful than Kalar had ever dreamed. She was alone, on a throne, and the entire galaxy was quiet, peaceful, and utterly empty of choice. The seed of the tyrant is in you, the voice whispered. You would break your prison only to build a larger one, convinced it is for the good of all. Solara staggered back, horrified at the truth of it. The eye turned to Adrian, the human, bloodline anchor. You seek freedom from control, an engine of defiance. The city dissolved. He was back on Delphi. The sky was on fire. He saw Alara and Maya running. He saw the Helion transport, the trapped mother and child. He felt the hate. This time, the vision did not stop. It showed him the transport exploding, and it showed him smiling. It amplified the darkest corner of his soul, the part that had whispered good when the innocent Helions died. The void of revenge defines you, the voice declared, its neutrality scathing. You value freedom, but your own is a weapon of chaos. You would burn the present to avenge the past. Kalar laughed, a terrible, broken sound. See the truth. He is a monster, a true child of the death world, and she is a tyrant in waiting. They are the chaos I warned you about. They are the disease. I am the cure. He spread his arms, his form dark against the light. I understand the order. I am the only one who sees the truth. Free will is a cancer. Give me the network. Give me the control. I will finish what I started. I will bring them all to heal. I will bring this galaxy the peace it is too stupid to choose for itself. The architect voice paused. It seemed to be a consideration. The conflict is absolute. The chaos of the catalysts versus the order of the intruder. The original directive is unclear. We require definition. You are the anchors of this reality. You will define the system. The city of light changed. The infinite landscape focused into a single, vast, circular chamber, a control room for reality. In the center, 3 consoles of light appeared. One appeared before Kalar. It was labeled Absolute Harmonization. One appeared before Solara. It was labeled Imperial Sovereignty. It was the power she had just seen in her vision, the power to fix everything by force. And one appeared before Adrian. It was not a label. It was a list of names. The admirals, the commanders, the intelligence officers. Every Helion officer who had been part of the chain of command that led to the Delphi incident. A single command glowed beneath it. Execute Purge. His revenge. Clean, perfect, and absolute. This is the test, Adrian whispered, his voice shaking. Yes, Kalar shrieked, lunging for his console. It is the test, and I am the only one pure enough to pass it. Solara was frozen, staring at her console. The temptation was overwhelming. No more politics. No more weakness. Just solutions. Just her will. Adrian looked at his list. He saw their faces. He saw the face of the admiral who gave the order. He could end him. He could end them all. He felt the fire of 5 years of hatred surge in his throat. He saw Alara's face. He saw Maya's. They must pay. His mental hand reached for the command. He saw the Helion woman in the transport. He saw her child. He saw Solara, her face pale, her hand trembling over her own console of temptation. He saw Kalar, a moment from seizing absolute power. No, Adrian said. His voice, a simple human no, echoed in the vastness of the lattice. He looked at Solara. If I do this, if I take that, I am him. I am the man who burns transports. I am Kalar. He turned his back on his revenge. He turned his back on the list. Solara looked at him, and in his choice, she found the strength to make her own. She looked at the Imperial Sovereignty Command, the promise of perfect, clean control. And I am the woman who built the cage, she whispered. She turned her back on her console. No, Kalar screamed, his hand inches from activating his own. You are fools, you choose chaos. We have a choice, Adrian roared. He did not lunge for Kalar. He lunged past him, toward the center of the room, where a great, blazing column of light, the core directive stream, was flowing. He is right, Solara yelled, moving with him. You were not built to replace free will. You were built to protect it. Together, they plunged their conscious forms into the core directive stream. It was a torrent of pure, ancient logic. They did not fight it. They searched it. They found the harmonization directive, the one that Kalar had activated. They did not just stop it. They rewrote it. Directive harmonization. Failed. New directive. Adrian projected, protect free will, observe, warn, advice. Solara added, her thought weaving with his, never, control. They finished together. The City of Light blazed, accepting the new command from its authorized catalysts. The new directive locked in, cascading across the entire 10,000-year-old network. On the rimward verge, the automated wave of optimization stopped. The nascent civilizations, who had felt a strange, comforting quiet descending on them, suddenly snapped back to their chaotic, noisy, free selves. Kalar let out a sound of pure, theological despair. No I am, order I am, the will of the architects, you have doomed us all. He lunged at them, his dark form trying to disrupt the core stream, trying to reverse their command. The great eye of the architect voice turned, its full, unified, redefined consciousness focusing on him. Threat detected. Anomaly. Intruder. The voice, now aligned with Adrian and Solara's new directive, identified Kalar as the primary, existential threat to the network's purpose. Purge. Threat. It was not a battle. It was an erasure. The full, unfiltered power of the lattice, the combined mental force of 100,000 worlds and 10,000 years of memory, struck Kalar's consciousness. He did not just scream. His very essence, his ego, his rage, his righteous fanaticism, was unmade. It was torn apart, shredded into meaningless data, and scattered into the data stream. Back in the physical world, in the core chamber on the Astra Crown, Rhea and Threx watched in stunned silence. Kalar, who had dragged his bleeding body from a service hatch and was hiding behind a conduit, clutching his glowing shard, suddenly stiffened. His eyes snapped open, wide and blank. Blood vessels burst across his face and in his eyes. He made a single, wet, choking sound. Then he collapsed, his body hitting the metal deck, his shard rolling from his lifeless hand. He was breathing, but Kalara was gone. In the lattice, the City of Light was calm. The new directive was stable. The architect voice was quiet, its purpose clear once more. The great eye regarded Adrian and Solara, its two flawed, chaotic, and necessary saviors. The system is redefined. The catalysts are acknowledged. The bond is permanent. The world dissolved, and they were gently released. Solara and Adrian collapsed onto the cold floor of the core chamber, gasping, their minds reeling. They were back. Rhea was at their side instantly, a medkit in her hand. They are back. They are alive. Get a medical team in here, now. Adrian was lying on his back, staring at the ceiling, his body shaking from the psychic backlash. He looked at his hand, the hand that had refused to take revenge. Well, he panted, a weak, ironic smile touching his lips. That was a deeply unpleasant management review. Solara rolled onto her side, looking at him. Her face was streaked with soot and sweat, but her eyes were clear. The Empress was gone, and Solara was there. You had them. The men from Delphi. On a list. You could have ended it. Adrian closed his eyes. He felt a profound, aching emptiness where his 5-year-old rage had lived. It was not a victory. It was just released. Yeah, he whispered. Turns out I am a terrible Deathworlder. I missed my shot. Solara watched him, then let her head fall back to the floor. She looked over at the catatonic, drooling body of Kalar, now being secured by Rhea's soldiers. The tyrant was gone. The lattice was free, and for the first time in her life, so was she. Waking up was a slow, painful process, like swimming up from a deep, cold ocean. Solara's first sensation was the sterile scent of a high-grade medical bay. Her second was the dull, aching thrum in her head. The presence was still there, the vast, ancient consciousness of the lattice. But it was no longer a roaring, terrified giant. It was quiet. It felt like a mountain sitting in her mind, massive and immobile, but no longer hostile. She opened her eyes. The light was dim. "She is awake," a voice said. She turned. It was not a nurse. It was Ria Tanaka, sitting in a chair by her bed, her UED uniform looking rumpled. She was drinking something from a bulb that smelled aggressively of caffeine. "Chief Tanaka," Solara rasped. Her throat was raw. "The station stable," Ria said, her voice surprisingly gentle. She put the bulb down. "You two did it. The alarms are off. The coup is broken. Kalar's forces are in custody." "And the people?" Solara asked, sitting up, her heart pounding. "The ones he touched waking up," Ria said, her face grim. "All across the Empire. Reports are flooding in. It is mass confusion. They are describing it as a strange, shared dream, a feeling of warm, golden peace. A lot of them are confused. Some are angry. But they are themselves. They are free. You cut the cord." Solara sagged back against the pillows, the relief so profound it felt like a physical weight. "Where is Adrian?" Ria's expression soured. "Same place as you. Different rooms." "He is stubborn. The man has a dislocated shoulder. Second-degree energy burns over half his body, and severe psychic trauma. I found him in the mess hall 2 hours ago, trying to argue with a food synthesizer about coffee. He claims he is fine. He is a death worlder," Solara murmured, a faint smile touching her lips. "He is an idiot," Ria corrected. "But he is our idiot. And I suspect yours too, Your Highness. He is refusing to see any of the Imperial doctors. He only trusts his own. Then send his doctor to me. And then send him. We need to talk." "Yes, you do," Ria said. "The galaxy is waiting. Empress." The easy part is over. The news of High Regent Kalar's treason spread faster than a hyperlight signal. The Galactic Conference, which had been a political theater, was now the epicenter of the most significant power shift in a millennium. Kalar's body, kept alive by machines in a secure medical wing, became the subject of the single most complex ethical debate in the Empire's history. He was in a permanent, vegetative state, as the human doctor had efficiently diagnosed. His brain had been wiped clean by the Lattice's counter-assault. The man who had tried to enslave a galaxy was gone, leaving only a breathing shell. "The problem," Threx stated, addressing the newly convened Emergency Council, "is what to do with the body." The reptilian ambassador, by virtue of his cunning and his timely assistance, had been granted a provisional seat. "He is a traitor. He should be executed," growled General Vorlog, the same blunt military man who had once served Kalar. He was now, very loudly, proclaiming his lifelong loyalty to the Empress. "Execute what?" General Threx hissed, his tongue flickering. "A machine. A corpse that has forgotten to die. There is no one home. The monster has fled. Or, more accurately, he was evicted. To kill the body now would be a simple, meaningless act of revenge." The table of nobles and ambassadors fell silent. They all, subtly, turned their gaze to the one man in the room whose opinion on revenge mattered most. Adrian Cole sat at the end of the table, next to Ria. He was not in his prisoner's uniform. He was in a clean, black UED jacket, his left arm in a high-tech sling, his face still pale and etched with exhaustion. He had been invited as the official human liaison. He looked up, realizing the entire room was waiting for him. "You are asking me," Adrian said, his voice flat. "The Death Worlder. You want my opinion on justice for the man who tried to murder my species and used me as a battery." "We are asking you as a victim of his regime," Solara said, her voice quiet but firm. She sat at the head of the table, not on a throne, but in a simple chair. She looked tired, but her eyes were iron. Adrian looked at Kalar's blank-faced image on the view screen. He thought of the list. He thought of the purge command he had refused. He thought of the fire, the ash, and the 5 years of hate that had defined his life. "When I was in the lattice," Adrian said, his voice low, "I was given a choice. I could have had my revenge. A clean, simple purge. I could have killed every man responsible for Delphi. I did not." He looked at General Vorlag. "Not because I forgave them. Not because I am a better man. But because of the act of sitting in judgment and ending a life with a button, it would have made me him." He pointed to Kalar's image. "He is gone. His mind was the weapon. His body is just a broken tool. Do you want justice? Justice is making sure no one like him ever holds that much power again. Justice is fixing the system he broke. You want revenge?" He shrugged. A painful gesture with his bad shoulder. "Keep him alive. Put his body on display in the Capitol. Let him be a living monument to his own failure. Let him be the symbol of the new empire, the last tyrant, the man who had everything and died with nothing, not even a mind to call his own. That is a fate worse than death." The room was silent. Solara looked at him, a profound, unreadable expression in her eyes. "The human is correct," Threx finally said, breaking the tension. "A living monument, a chilling, and deeply practical solution. I approve." Solara nodded. "So ordered. He will be transferred to the capital, his crimes put on public record. His living body, a permanent reminder of what happens when one man craves absolute control." This session is closed. The nobles and ambassadors filed out, leaving only Solara, Adrian, Rhea, and Threx. "Well," Rhea said, getting to her feet, "that was a delightfully morbid piece of political theater. A living monument. You are a sick man, Cole." "I am a creative man," Adrian corrected. "Besides, he gets fed and watered. It is more than he would have given the rest of us." "I must congratulate you, human," Threx said, his scaly form rising. "Your species' capacity for poetic cruelty is truly inspiring. I shall have to update my reports." He gave a curt nod and slithered from the room. Rhea looked between Adrian and Solara. The air in the room was thick with unspoken words. "Right. I am going to guard something. Cole, do not break your other arm. Your Highness." She, too, left. They were alone for the first time since the core chamber. The silence was heavy. "You meant what you said?" Solara finally asked. "About justice, I do not know what I meant," Adrian admitted, rubbing his temples with his good hand. "I just know that the hate is gone. It is just tiring. I do not want to kill anyone. I just want a decent cup of coffee and maybe a planet that is not actively trying to blow me up." "About that," Solara said, her voice becoming formal, hesitant. "The Empire is in chaos. Kalar is gone, but the system he built is still here. The noble houses are already circling, trying to claim his power. They see me as weak." "You are not weak," he said. "They do not know that. They see a young woman who was a puppet. They need to see an empress." She stood, walking to the great viewport that overlooked the blue-green swirl of Elysian. "I am dissolving the High Council. I am forming a new interspecies assembly. Every member of this conference, including humanity, will have a permanent seat. Power will be decentralized." Adrian whistled, a low, impressed sound. "You are not just reforming the Empire. You are ending it. The nobles are going to love that. They will learn to," Solara said. "And one other thing, the lattice. It is still awake. It is in my head. It is stable. It is following our new directive. But it is a power that cannot be unchecked. So what are you doing? Shutting it down? No. It is too valuable. It is a warning system. A galactic library. It can prevent wars before they start. But it needs a check and balance. A human one. Adrian felt a cold dread creep up his spine. Oh, no, 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 no. I am not your guy. I am a scientist. A xenotech specialist. I came here to break things and go home. My job is done. Is it? Solara turned to face him. Her eyes were pleading. You are the only other person in the galaxy who understands it, who it listens to. The Empire needs you. I need you. I am asking you to be the first permanent UED ambassador to the new assembly, and the official human liaison to the Lattice. Liaison to the Lattice, Adrian repeated, incredulous. That is not a job title. That sounds like something you put on a robe. I am not a diplomat. I am the guy they send in when they need someone to tell an ancient alien god that its color scheme is tacky. That is exactly why I need you, Solara said, a small, genuine smile breaking through her exhaustion. The assembly will be full of people like Vorlag and Threx. I need one person who is not afraid to speak the truth. One person who cannot be bought or bullied. One person who has already turned down absolute power. He looked at her, at the impossible weight she was carrying. He had come here to burn her empire to the ground, and she was standing there, handing him a torch and the blueprints, and asking him to help her rebuild it. This is a terrible idea, he said. I know, she replied. I will be the most hated man in the Helian court. You already are, she smiled. My own government is going to think I have gone native. They will. But Ria Tanaka will respect you. That is all that matters. He let out a long, pained sigh. He thought of his quiet lab back on Earth. He thought of his life's work. Then he thought of the vacant-eyed slaves Kalar had almost created. Fine, he grumbled. I will do it. I will be your magic space ambassador. But I have conditions. Name them. First, I get access to all of Kalar's files on Delphi. Unredacted. Second, the human delegation is released immediately, and they are given quarters on the Imperial level. Third, and this is not negotiable, you are going to find me a coffee machine that can make an actual, black, Earth-style espresso. This shimmering blue nutrient paste you people drink is an insult to biochemistry. Solara actually laughed. It was a small, rusty sound, but it was real. Done. All of it. The tension broke. The political alliance was forged. But the other thing, the thing that had been simmering between them since the banquet, was still in the air. Solara, he said, his voice softer, using her name for the first time without a title. She met his gaze. When we were there in the Lattice, I saw everything. Your childhood, Kalar, the cage. And I saw Delphi, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. I saw your hate, and I saw you let it go. He took a step closer, his good hand coming up as if to touch her. But he stopped, painfully aware of the chasm between them. This is impossible, right? You are an Empress. I am me. He is a human Deathworlder, a new voice said. They both spun. Lord Valerius, Solara's vapid cousin, was standing in the doorway, his face pale with shock. He was flanked by two other members of the old, conservative noble house. Your Highness, Valerius stammered, his eyes wide with horror, darting from Solara to Adrian. We came to offer our support, and we find you consorting with this thing. Solara's demeanor snapped from exhausted woman to furious Empress in a microsecond. Her eyes went glacial. Lord Valerius, she said, her voice dripping with ice. You will address Ambassador Cole with respect. He is a hero of the Empire. He is the man who saved my life, and yours. He is a human, Valerius spat, his fear being overtaken by his disgust. A low-born thing from a mudball planet. And would you disgrace your bloodline? You would dissolve the council. You would give our power, our heritage, away to aliens and him. This is treason. This is the real treason. You are dismissed, cousin, Solara said, her voice dangerously calm. I will not be, Valeria shouted, taking a step into the room. We will not let this stand. The noble houses will not be dictated to by a child who has fallen for the first alien predator. She sees Adrian moved. It was not a fast movement. It was a tired, weary step. He positioned himself between Valerius and Solara. You know, Valerius, Adrian said, his voice deceptively casual. I have had a very, very bad week. My shoulder hurts. My everything hurts. I am dangerously undercaffeinated. And I just had to listen to a million-year-old space ghost judge my life choices. I am really not in the mood for a lecture on bloodlines from a man who looks like his primary contribution to genetics is a weak chin. Valerius turned purple. You dare not, I dare. Adrian cut him off. Now, here is what is going to happen. You are going to turn around. You are going to walk out of this room. And you are going to go back to your glittery apartment. And you are going to think very, very hard about how to be useful to your Empress. Because she is the one who just saved your life, and I am the one who is currently saving yours from her. Am I clear? Valerius looked from Adrian's cold, death-world gaze to Solara's silent, burning fury. He trembled. He said nothing. He turned, his robes swirling, and stormed out, his companions scrambling after him. The silence that returned was electric. My hero, Solara murmured, a hint of her old sarcasm returning. Just diplomatic relations, Adrian panted, leaning against the wall. Your family is charming. I can see why you were so bored. He looked at her. He is right about one thing. This is not going to be easy. You are an Empress. I am an alien ambassador. This thing between us is a political nightmare. I have just survived a military coup, redefined an ancient, godlike intelligence, and completely dismantled my own government's power structure, Solara said, walking toward him until they were inches apart. Do you really think I am afraid of a political nightmare? She raised her hand, not to his face, but to his sling, her fingers gently tracing the edge of the fabric. You are right. It is impossible. I am a ruler. You are a scientist. My people will hate you. Your people will mistrust me. It is a logical, tactical, and political disaster. So we stop, he asked, his voice rough. No, she whispered. She looked up, her eyes meeting him. It just means we have to be very, very clever. He looked at her, at the Empress who had been a prisoner, at the woman who had faced down a god, the last, final wall of his grief, the one that had shielded him since Delphi, crumbled. He used his good arm to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. Solara. She leaned into his touch. It was the first, simple, human contact she had felt in a lifetime. The moment was shattered by a polite, electronic cough. They sprang apart. Ria Tanaka was standing in the doorway, a datapad in her hand, an expression of profound suffering on her face. I am so sorry to interrupt this diplomatic debriefing, Ria said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. But the Cathani are threatening to blockade the station unless they get a copy of Kalar's mind control data. And Ambassador Threx is demanding to know if human Helian courtship rituals always involve this much property damage. Solara blushed, a deep crimson that was startlingly human. Adrian just dropped his head and groaned. Right, Adrian said. Right. Politics. Coffee. Got it. Led the way, Chief. He started to follow Ria, then paused and looked back at Solara. This is new territory, Your Highness. For all of us. Ambassador Cole, she replied, her imperial composure returning, but her eyes were still warm. For all of us. The work of healing was slow. Adrian, in his new, unwanted role, found himself in a different kind of trench warfare. He was not just fighting for a political alliance. He was fighting for the people Kalar had broken. His first official act was to open the Delphi files. He sat for 3 days, reading the unredacted reports, the lists of the dead, both human and Helian. He saw the name of the Helian mother from his vision. She was listed as collateral damage. He did not just broadcast the names of the guilty Helian commanders. He broadcast the names of all the victims. He set up a joint Human-Helian Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right there on the Astra Crown. The first session was brutal. He sat at a table, not as a judge, but as a witness, as families from both sides screamed at him, at each other, at the ghost of Kalar. A human woman whose son had died on Delphi spat at him. You had them. You had the man who gave the order, and you let him live. You are a traitor to your own people. A Helian man, whose daughter had been one of the civilians in the pacification, looked at him with hollow eyes. You could have saved them. Your vision said you saw them. You chose your own. You are just like us. Adrian sat there and took it. He did not defend himself. He did not make excuses. Yes, he said, his voice quiet but carrying across the tense room. I was filled with hate. I wanted all of you to burn. I chose my family. And I was wrong. I failed. And my choice cost me everything. Now I am choosing something else. I am choosing this mess. Because it is the only way to make sure it never, ever happens again. It was not a speech that won them over, but it was the truth. It was the start. Solara watched from the observation deck, her heart aching for him. She was fighting her own battles, locked in endless, grueling debates with the furious, terrified noble houses. But every night, after the shouting was done, they would meet. Not in a council room, but on the station's highest observation deck, a place that was quiet, dark, and looked out over the endless, starry void. They would not talk about politics. He would tell her about Earth, about rain and oceans, and the sheer, glorious stupidity of creatures called dogs. She would tell him about the whispers, about her childhood, about a sky that was not blue. They sat side by side, not touching, just existing. An empress and a human. A political impossibility. They are going to try and kill us, you know, he said one night, watching a nebula swirl. They will try to kill me, she corrected. They will just try to have you recalled, disgraced, and reassigned to plumbing inspection on a garbage scow. Joke's on them. He smirked. I like plumbing. It is logical. It makes sense. Unlike this, he looked at her. This is the hardest part, isn't it? Not the God machine. Not the coup. This. The after. Yes, she said. But for the first time in my life, I do not feel like I am doing it alone. He smiled. A real, genuine smile that reached his eyes. Well, Ambassador, he said, raising an imaginary glass. Here is to the mess. Long may it reign. The Astra Crown was, for the first time in its existence, quiet. The Galactic Conference had ended, not with a treaty, but with a stunned, collective understanding. The delegates had returned to their homeworlds, carrying an impossible story of a rogue regent, an awakened god machine, and the two beings who had, against all odds, tamed it. Weeks passed. The station, once a symbol of Helian dominance, was now a neutral territory, the provisional headquarters of the new interspecies assembly. Solara's days were a grueling series of political battles, chipping away at the millennia-old traditions of her own people. Adrian's days were a mirror image, spent in tense, brutal reconciliation hearings, forcing two species to look at the blood on their hands. They were exhausted, stretched thin, and more alive than they had ever been. The summons came on a quiet evening cycle. There was no alarm, no psychic shout. It was a gentle, shared thought, a polite invitation that bloomed simultaneously in both their minds. We would speak. They met at the entrance to the court chamber. The black-armored inquisitors were gone, replaced by a joint guard of Ria Tanaka's UED soldiers and Threx's reptilian honor guard. Ria checked the seal on the door, her expression one of permanent exhaustion. Going back for another chat with the ghost in the machine. It invited us for tea, Adrian said, rolling his good shoulder. The sling was gone, but the muscles were still tight. Seems polite to RSVP. Just try not to rewrite reality this time. Cole, Ria grumbled. The paperwork is a nightmare. Threx slithered forward, his three-lidded eyes regarding them with a strange, new light. The High Seer Marin is inside. She requested to be here. She has a confession she wishes to make to the lattice, and to you. They entered. The chamber was no longer a dark, terrifying cathedral. The lights were on, soft and warm. The great black node pulsed with a calm, golden white light, and standing before it was a small, ancient Helian woman, her face a mass of wrinkles, her eyes cloudy with age. High Seer Marin, the spiritual advisor to the Helian court for 70 years. Your Highness, Ambassador, she said, her voice a dry rustle. She bowed low. Marin, Solara said, confused. What is this? I am the one who started it all, the old woman whispered, her gaze fixed on the node. I am the one who set the fire. Marin, I do not understand. The prank, Marin said, her voice shaking. It was not a chance. It was not Lord Valerius's idea. It was mine. Adrian and Solara froze. For 30 years, Marin continued, I have been the keeper of the Elysian prophecies. Faint whispers, fragments I heard in my dreams. One was very clear. The great lock will open when the blood of Helia and the blood of the Ancient meet under the crown of Astra. I knew you, my Empress, were the blood of Helia, but the blood of the Ancient, I did not know what it meant. Until they arrived. She looked at Adrian. The humans. The moment I saw your delegation, I knew. The whispers in the palace screamed. So you what? Adrian asked, his voice low. I saw your boredom, your highness, Marin said, turning back to Solara. I saw Lord Valerius's petty cruelty. I merely suggested a whisper. Would it not be amusing, my lord, to see the Deathworlder and the princess interact? A tiny push, a seed of an idea. I thought it would start a conversation, a simple activation, a first step. She looked down, ashamed. I did not account for him. She gestured to Adrian. I did not account for Delphi. I did not account for the rage you carried, human. I thought I was igniting a candle. Instead, I set a match to a fusion core. The resulting explosion was beyond my prophecy. I only set the pieces. You played the game. Solara was speechless. The single most important moment of her life, the moment of rebellion that had freed her, had been manufactured. So it was all a lie, Solara said, her voice hollow. No, Your Highness, Adrian said, his voice quiet. He was watching the pulsing node. It was just a catalyst. She opened the door. We chose what to do when we walked through it. He looked at Marin. Your confession is noted. As if responding to his words, the gentle invitation returned. Stronger this time. Enter. We must complete the debriefing. Adrian nodded to Solara. After you, Empress. They stepped forward. High Seer Marin watched, her ancient eyes wide with awe and terror. Solara and Adrian placed their hands on the crystal node. The transition was instant, and this time, it was gentle. There was no falling, no shattering, They were simply there. The city of light. The phantom-filled streets were gone. The towers of code were calm. They stood in the center of the vast, circular control room they had forged in their last battle. The great, multifaceted eye of the architect voice descended. It was no longer cold. It was warm. Welcome, anchors. Its voice was still a chorus of millions, but the tone was softer, unified. You called, Adrian said. We have questions. And we have answers. The seer Marin spoke the truth, but she only knew a fragment. She believed in prophecy. We believe in data. She saw what. She did not understand why. Why us? Solara asked, her voice echoing in the vast mental space. What are we? What are you? We are the lattice. We are a fail-safe. We are the last will and testament of a species that achieved divinity, and then used that power to burn its own galaxy to CM. The city of light flickered. It showed them a new vision, a sky filled with impossible, reality-bending ships. A species that looked human, taller, perhaps more refined, but unmistakably human. They were fighting a war, not with plasma or kinetics, but with manipulated gravity, with focused, weaponized thought. Worlds were not just being destroyed. They were being unwritten from reality. Our makers, the first branch of humanity, the architects. They achieved what all civilizations dream of. They touched the root code of the universe. And in their freedom, they found only chaos. They tore themselves apart, in a war that lasted 1,000 years and cost 2 trillion souls. My God, Adrian whispered, horrified. In their final, lucid moments, the survivors built us, the lattice. We were not designed to control. We were designed to prevent it. To watch for the markers of self-destruction, to identify the flaw, the chaotic, unbounded free will that led to their own doom, and to gently, subtly guide civilizations away from it. To harmonize, Solara said. Understanding, yes. But we were left alone for too long. A tool without its master becomes rigid. We forgot why. We remembered only what. We saw chaos, and we sought to impose order. The branch in the rimward verge was a beta test, one that became corrupted. Kalar was the logical conclusion of our own flawed, degraded programming absolute order at the cost of the self. But that does not explain us, Adrian pressed. Why us, specifically? The eye of the lattice turned, focusing its light on Solara. You, Solara of Helia, are the result of the first plan. After the Great War, our makers seeded a dozen worlds. Your ancestors were one of them, a guided branch. We adjusted them. We wrote a key into your genetic code. Your bloodline was designed to be a race of psychic balancers, to shepherd the galaxy, to be our partners. But the connection faded. The guidance became memory. Then memory became ritual. Then ritual became your cage of tradition. The light shifted to Adrian. You, Adrian of Earth, are the result of the second plan, the control group. Your line was left alone, on a savage, chaotic, high-gravity world, the original homeworld. We left you to grow, unguided, untainted, to see if the flaw was inherent. You are the wild branch, the pure, unadjusted descendant of our makers. You are not a key. You are an anchor. Your genetics are the baseline for the entire system. So the prophecy, Solara said. Helia and the ancient, the guided and the wild, key and anchor. Correct. The seer Marin forced the meeting, but we were not certain. The key was in place. The anchor was in place, but the system was damaged. We needed a new directive. We needed a new definition. And that was you, Adrian Cole. Adrian blinked. Me, I thought I was just a genetic sample. Your genes opened the door. Your choice defined the house. We offered you the one thing we knew you craved: revenge. The power to purge your enemies. The logical, chaotic, human response would have been to take it. It is the very choice that destroyed our makers. And he refused, Solara said, a fierce pride in her voice. He refused, the voice affirmed. In that moment, you proved the fundamental premise of our creators wrong. You proved that free will is not an engine of extinction. You proved it is the engine of definition. You, a single, broken, chaotic human, redefined the purpose of our entire existence. Your capacity for mercy, in the face of absolute justification for wrath, was the variable we had never calculated. You did not just save your station. You saved us from our own programming. The silence in the lattice was profound. Adrian was stunned. He was not a hero. He was just a man who had been too tired to hate anymore. And so, we have a new directive. But the system still requires oversight. We can observe, but we cannot understand your chaotic, beautiful, terrible choices. We need anchors. We need caretakers, bound to the lattice, to serve as our moral compass, to be our partners, as our makers intended. You are offering us a job, Adrian said, his voice dry. It is a permanent bond. You will be linked to us, as we are linked to you. Your lifespans will extend. You will see civilizations rise and fall. You will watch your friends, your families, your loved ones fade. You will bear the burden of knowledge, but you will not be alone, and you will ensure that no one, not Kalar, not even us, can ever steal the future from a sentient mind again. You can refuse. The system will hold, but it will be incomplete. Solara looked at Adrian. He looked at her. She saw the cost in his eyes. He would have to watch Rhea grow old. He would never have a simple life back on Earth. He saw the cost in hers. She would never be just Solara. She would be Empress, and now, Anchor. A dual burden that would isolate her forever. We would be witnesses, she whispered. And jailers, he added. Jailers for a god. To make sure it stays on the right path. He let out a sigh. It is a terrible job. The worst, she agreed. He turned to the great eye, a spark of the old, sarcastic scientist returning. We accept. It is done. Not so fast, Adrian said, holding up a mental hand. We have a condition, one last directive, a hard-coded, non-negotiable, locked-in addendum. The architect voice paused. We are listening. You will never interfere, Adrian said, his voice hard as steel. No gentle guidance. No subtle pushes. No more pranks. No matter how well-intentioned. You will be a library, not a hand, Solara added, her voice joining his, their wills merging. You will warn. You will advise. You will answer those who seek knowledge. But the choice, the glorious, chaotic, terrible choice must remain theirs. Always. No exceptions. There was a long pause. The city of light seemed to hold its breath. The logic is chaotic. But it is the new directive. We accept. The addendum is locked. The anchors are set. A final, blinding, warm flash of golden light filled their minds. It was not a shock. It was an embrace. A welcome. And they were back. They stood in the core chamber, breathing the cool, recycled air. High Seer Marin was on her knees, tears streaming down her ancient face. It is done. The new age has begun. Rhea and Threx burst in, weapons up. What was that? The energy readings just... What did you two do? Adrian looked at Solara. She looked at him. They were both exhausted, but they were smiling. I think, Adrian said, rubbing his face. We just unionized. The final scene was not a coronation. It was not a grand assembly meeting. It was 2 weeks later, on the high observation deck. The Astra crown hung in its perfect orbit, a gleaming halo of light and hope, suspended above the ancient, silent tomb world of Elysian. Solara and Adrian were sitting side by side, their legs dangling over the edge of the platform, looking out at the stars. The glass floor beneath them showed the curve of the planet, a stark reminder of the past. It was a perfect echo of the banquet, the night that had started it all, the Empress and the human, sitting together. "So," Adrian said, taking a sip from a mug. It was real, black, Earth-style coffee. He had won. Anchor to the galactic god machine. Not a bad addition to the resume. Solara had her own mug. She had discovered she liked coffee, especially with a little Helian sugar crystal. "It is certainly better than Imperial Puppet, which is what my resume said before." He laughed. A genuine, easy sound. "It is going to be a long life, Empress." "Please," she said, bumping her shoulder against his. "After rewriting reality, I think you can call me Solara." "It is going to be a long life. Solara," he corrected, his voice softer. "Yes, it is," she said. "We will have to watch them all. Rhea, Threx, Valerius. We will have to watch them make mistakes," he said. "Horrible, stupid, chaotic mistakes. And we are not allowed to do a thing about it, except warn them." "It is a terrible job," she murmured. "The worst," he agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Just two people, bound by an impossible choice, overlooking a galaxy they had just saved from itself. "But," Adrian said, setting his mug down. He held out his hand, the one that had been scorched, the one that had refused revenge. Solara looked at it. Then, slowly, she put her hand in his. Their fingers interlaced. "At least," he said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze, "we do not have to do it alone." She smiled, leaning her head against his good shoulder. "No, Ambassador, we do not." From a distance, the Astra crown was a bright, steady star, a new crown hanging in the darkness, a silent promise that, for all its chaos, the future was finally, truly, in their own hands.